Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Mace, coming to you from small town Canada. And yeah, thank you for being here. Let's check this out. Usually wouldn't touch this topic with a 10-foot pole, but here we are. Why Australia's million guns illegal? Why Australia's million illegal guns prove that guns are safe? Topher Project. I don't usually like talking about guns. I don't really like guns. I got nothing against guns at the same time. It's more of an indifference and an ambivalence towards guns. Like it's just, I didn't grow up around guns. I don't shoot guns. Yeah, I would maybe want to go on a hunting trip someday. Maybe I'll get a chance to do that. Guns isn't really a hot topic issue here in Canada. You know, I think even right and left wing, it's not like what you see sometimes in the political rhetoric in the United States, where guns and the Second Amendment becomes such a polarizing, divisive issue that people just look at it in a black and white. And I always think of the South Park scene. They took our jobs, but they're trying to take our guns and all of that stuff. I think guns are not inherently dangerous in themselves. It's more so cultural differences. There's countries in the world, I think it's maybe Switzerland. There's lots of guns, and people are trained on like automatic weapons. They've got guns all over the place, but they also have very, very strict gun laws, right? They have strict gun controls regarding those guns, which I think is common sense. I think. And sometimes the gun control argument is like, well, guns don't kill people. People kill people. Which is, yes, that's true, but it's also kind of stupid. I mean, a stupid argument. People do kill people, but if you eliminate more guns and opportunity and access to guns, there's going to be less gun deaths. Because the thing with guns, there's such a... They have such a high lethality, right? They're very, very effective at what they do. So I think, you know, background checks, having limitations on probably certain magazine sizes and or automatic weapons, having holds on, you know, how quickly you can purchase a gun, I think is smart. You know, if somebody's in a heated rage and they're in a you know, a state of absolute mental health instability, and maybe they had a huge fight and they want to go buy a gun because, you know, they want to kill this person. They're so mad. But if you have a 48-hour hold, or I don't know what a good time period is, probably something like that, 48 to 72 hours, maybe, you know, they're gonna rethink themselves, rethink their lives, and then not commit that murder. But same token, they might use a different weapon. They might use a knife. They might use something else. So I think background checks, restrictions on magazine sizes, automatic weapons, having holds on weapons, strict controls to how guns have to be stored to protect children and vulnerable people. Like all of those, very, very, very common sense. I think recreational use and people that want to have fun going and shoot guns, they should be able to do that. But there should also be a very, 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 very stringent amount of, I think there should be like some training involved. I think there should be a level of responsibility. And the people that own and want guns should aspire to be very responsible gun owners. Anyways, let's see what this video... Obviously, Australia's got an interesting history with guns. The Port Arthur massacre was in, I want to say, 1996. And very quickly after that, there was restrictions and buybacks. And anyways, let's get into this video, see what this dude's got to say.
Why aren't Australians dead yet? Haven't you heard the news? There's over 1 million illegal guns in Australia. They could be anywhere. They're everywhere. One of them could be hunting you right now. So, if guns are as evil as politicians say, and there's really 1 million of them, illegally floating around on this island. Why aren't we all dead yet? My name's Topher Field. This is the Topher Project, and I help people like you to understand the world as it changes around you. And yes, it's true.
Yeah, I definitely don't think guns are evil. I think the differences in countries and gun deaths and gun violence and gun statistics, a lot of times it does come down to the things I was speaking to prior, but it also comes down to culture. So if the culture, like American culture, is so much about, you get in a friggin' fender bender, or somebody cuts you off and you pull a gun and stick it out the window. I can carry them. This is you can carry guns. You don't have to have them locked up. You can do whatever you want. It's like,
20 years after the
of course, there's going to be more
ban
shootings.
in 1996, after 3 decades of Australia having some of the strictest gun laws in the world, there are, according to the media, over 1 million illegal guns on the loose, in addition to the 4 million legal ones in Australia. But how can that be? Illegal guns are illegal. We made them against the law.
Yeah.
Sure. And criminals don't obey gun laws.
It's the thing. Criminals don't obey gun laws. As soon as you outlaw something, as soon as you restrict something, as soon as you make something illegal, there inevitably becomes a black market for those things, right?
We know that. And I agree
criminals
that
aren't
gun
gonna
laws generally are absurd and only serve to disarm the victims rather than the criminals, but all of that's been said 1,000 times already, and that's not what this video is about. What caught my eye is actually the lack of gun violence, given that, well, there's 1 million of the suckers just floating around this continent. Have a look at murder statistics in Australia. 2023 is the most recent year we have data for. The number of people murdered was, drumroll please, 247. In a population north of 25 million, that's a murder rate of approximately 0.0001%. But of those 247 murder victims, just 27 involved guns. Yep. There's 1 million illegal guns in this country, in addition to the 4 million legal ones, and yet, at most, just 27 were used in murders, assuming that the same gun was never used twice. So, with 1 million illegal guns floating around in this country, 89% of successful murderers didn't use one. I mean, I feel like there's a TV ad in there somewhere. 9 out of 10 murderers prefer not guns. Now, some people will claim that this is proof that gun control is working. If it weren't for our strict gun control laws, we would have rampant gun murders everywhere. And they might have had a point if our strict gun laws had resulted in guns actually being hard to get.
I think the statistics and the context of how the statistics are, accumulated and gathered, I think it makes measuring the effectiveness of gun control rather difficult. But there is something to be said, like the United States. I would imagine, I don't know what the stats are, but Australia, he just said very low amount. But if I had to guess, I would say American gun deaths are 10 to 15 times higher than Australia's, because I think that's roughly what it is compared to Canada, 10 to 15 times higher. So if Canada had 10 gun deaths, maybe the United States is going to have, if Canada had 1,000, the United States is going to have 15,000, right? It's enormous, the disparity. And proponents of gun control will say, hey, Canada, our population is also vastly lower, but Canada has this number of per capita gun deaths, and the United States has this many per capita gun deaths. What's going on here? So I guess it depends on your belief.
But the point here is that, at the risk of repeating myself, there's 1 million illegal guns floating around. And, well, most of us can think of where we would go to look for.
I'm curious how they gather the statistics for the illegal guns if they're unaccounted for and illegal, and how are they getting these?
One, and buy it if the need ever really arose. So, if there's just 27 murders involving guns, out of the 1 million or so people who have just the illegal ones, then, I'm sorry, but our low murder rate isn't a product of gun control, it's a product of people's temper control. We are not shooting each other because we decide against it, not because we lack the hardware to do it. And this will really blow your mind. Because there's about 4 million legal registered guns plus the 1 million illegal ones, that's a total of 5 million guns responsible for these 27 gun murders. We know that. Thing is, there's 25 million Australians responsible for all 247 murders. And if you do the maths, this means that you are nearly twice as likely to be killed by any random Australian than you are to be killed by any given gun. And you walk past people all the time, right? I mean, you live next to some of them. You'd be safer living next to an AR-15 than you are to those lovely neighbours who always wave at you as you pass them by. They are a bit weird. Or is that just me? Never mind. On average, 30 Australians die from falling off ladders every year, which means your ladder in your cupboard is more likely to murder you than any of the 5 million guns in Australia, and falls of all kinds can kill more than 5,000 Australians a year, making gravity public enemy number one. The thing is, none of these statistics actually change anyone's minds. I could go on for days with all kinds of things that are more dangerous to you than these million illegal guns. But for people who are afraid of guns, well, it's exactly that, fear. It's not rational. It's not based on data or evidence. It's an irrational, emotional response based on a combination of movies, media fear porn, and social conditioning.
I mean, guns are almost a perfectly designed killing machine. Like, so there's something to be said that when guns are around and you see accidents happen, like people get right. But yeah, I don't know. He's obviously pro-gun, this fella. I got nothing against guns, like I said at the beginning of the video. But like I said, I kind of don't mind, and I don't think about guns. You know, there isn't any shootings. There hasn't been a murder where I live in my lifetime. It doesn't happen. You go to the cities, yeah, it's a bit differently, but it's more so gangs and criminals that are killing each other, right? Civilians sometimes get caught in the crossfire, but when there's more guns in like just normal everyday civilians' hands, I feel like there's going to be an uptick in some of those murders that he mentioned, like your regular crime of passion murders, people that know people that know others, people that get into arguments, fights. There's going to be more gun use and more successful murders when you have more guns around instead of fist fights and, you know, baseball bats and like things that people are going to use the most lethal weapon at their disposal.
So there's actually no use me continuing to go through the data pointing out that you're more likely to be killed on a road trip than by a gun. You're 50 times more likely to choke on your dinner than to swallow a bullet. And all of that stuff, all of that's true in a country that has 5 million guns in it. But for most people, that data just bounces off, because you can't change someone's mind using evidence if they never used evidence to make up their mind in the first place. And I know this because my own views on guns used to be just as irrational. Yes, I liked them as a boy, of course I did, but I was 14 years of age when John Howard banned them, and I actually supported the ban. I got caught up in all the post-Port Arthur hysteria, and I self-righteously proclaimed that only bad guys would want to keep their guns. Now, that was a long time ago, and obviously I've changed a lot since then. But why? If my opinion wasn't based on evidence and data in the first place, then it couldn't be changed by evidence or data. So what changed my mind? Experience. In my late teens, I went shooting with a few friends on their farms and discovered that, hey, this is fun.
Okay, so for him, is it more so just a recreational thing that he believes that people should have guns? Because there's different people that have different viewpoints of why a citizenry should be armed or have guns. In American politics, even the Canadian people on the right will say, whoa, we need to have guns so we can fight back, we can combat a tyrannical government if we get to that point, as if we're just going to be able to fight the military, as if like the people can create a militia. And yeah, they would probably work if you got to that point, I guess. And, you know, if the purge is going on outside and shit is going to absolute hell, yeah, you know, you're in Walking Dead land, of course. Having guns is going to be good. Guns are going to be a scarcity. They're going to be sought after, and they're going to be something that you need in an apocalyptic or a breakdown of society, an apocalyptic situation. But in the real world, guns are also dangerous. There's no doubt. But I want to see, like, so his opinion seems to be more so like, I think guns should be unrestricted so I can go, shoot at targets with my mates. Type of.
Then I spent a few years as a grunt in the Army Reserves. Yes, play soldiers, chocos, all that. I don't mention my time in the Army Reserves to try and impress you, only to say that I spent a few years regularly handling assault rifles. Not assault weapons, that's the politically manipulated but actually meaningless term used by anti-gun politicians in the US. I mean actual assault rifles, meaning detachable magazine, medium caliber, select fire rifles. These are the scary ones that the Democrats in the US try to ban despite the Second Amendment. Yeah, I carried one of those regularly for a few years, including with live ammunition often enough, and I was surrounded by other young, testosterone-fueled men who were also carrying an assault rifle and a few hundred freedom seeds at the same time. And yet none of us ever shot each other. Then I went and spent some time in the USA, in Texas, specifically helping in an unpaid capacity with a TV pilot episode, which sadly never went anywhere. But nevertheless, I had rather a lot of fun, and I found myself positively surrounded by guns all of the time.
Yeah.
As a non-citizen, I couldn't carry my own, of course, but I didn't have to. At any given time, the people I was with had a half a dozen of them within arm's reach. And to quote Sergeant Major Basil...
And yet that did absolutely nothing in that... I can't remember the exact name of the school shooting, but the police didn't even go in and try to take down. Like, okay, the argument that you have a bunch of people walking around with guns is going to prevent school shootings or prevent bad guys from killing innocents that don't have guns, I think is kind of silly. Like, you don't really see stories of just like civilians and citizens like taking down the mass shooter, right? Like,
Plumley, if the time comes that I ever need one, there will be plenty lying on the ground. Honestly, I quickly came to like it. And getting back to Australia and knowing that the people...
Probably not a good idea to have a bunch of guns lying on the ground.
Well, it left me feeling naked. And yes, I know people say we don't need to carry guns in Australia because it's safer than the US and all that nonsense. And that's an argument for another time.
I think carrying around guns, just like going shopping, would be the most stupid... Like, okay.
Point is this.
I don't know.
By spending time around guns and around people with guns.
Why would you possibly need to like walk around with a gun on your belt? Because you're scared? Like, yeah, I don't know.
My view of them was completely transformed, and now I am a raging pro-gun absolutist. No, I don't have a gun here in Australia nor a gun license. I refuse to jump through their hoops, and after my resistance to the government during COVID, they would probably decide that I'm not a fit and proper person in any case. But all of that is beside the point. The point is that we are absolutely right about guns. Guns are safer than people, and the statistics clearly bear that out, but that's all irrelevant. If we are going to change the attitudes...
I was going to say, saying that guns are safer than people is... kind of silly. Like, the only way that a gun gets fired is if a person fires it. So I don't know, like I said at the beginning of the video, I don't like talking about guns. I don't care that much about guns. I'm not pro, but I'm not really against. I'm just ambivalent. But living in Canada where there's not many guns around, you're not just gonna see like kids aren't going to have easy access to guns, gangs, find guns, obviously, but I like that we don't have an ardent gun culture.
Of Australians towards guns, we won't do it by...
I'll tell an anecdotal... Well, it's not even an anecdotal story. We were watching a lot of crime shows recently, and they're based in America, and time again, there'd be like a story of a murder taking place, and one in particular, I'll just give that example. There was a couple, they're married for a couple years. The wife is pregnant, and she discovers, well, the cops figured this out afterwards, but she had discovered that he was cheating or talking to another girl, and she was preparing to leave the house, divorce him, etc. And it was revealed within the episode that this couple, on their bedside tables, had like little gun boxes. So like they could, on their bedside, their nightside tables, where they right beside where they sleep, guns. And guess what happened? They had a heated argument. She was packing her bags, and he pulled out the gun, shot her 5 times. She was pregnant. Maybe not the smartest idea to have guns on the bedside table. And so many of the stories is like, oh, they had a gun in the downstairs unit, and he went and grabbed it, and he shot them. And like, there's no doubt that I think intimate partner violence, domestic violence, having more and more guns around is going to result in more dead partners. No doubt. You could say like, oh yeah, well, they're going to use a knife. They're going to find out a way to do it some other means, but at least the other partner would have a better fighting chance.
Arguing the statistics. We'll do it by inviting them to come down to the range with us, by having them out shooting clays on a farm, by helping them to experience guns in a positive setting for themselves. If you want to change the gun laws in Australia, don't call your local gun rights group. Most of them are on the take anyway, working for the government, not their members. Call your local gun range and ask about making a booking for you and some of your non-shooting mates for a try-shooting session. The irony of all of this media hysteria about 1 million illegal guns is that it proves beyond doubt that guns aren't the problem, and our fear of them is irrational. The tragedy is that's nice to know, but irrelevant. We won't win the gun debate through arguments and data, but through hearts and minds, and we do that by helping non-shooters to give them a go. My name's Topher Field, this is the Topher Project, and I help people like you to understand the world as it changes around us. Now, I do this full time, so if you'd like to support my work, then you can buy my books and merch from goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com. You can follow me on all of the socials via @TopherField, and of course, please like, subscribe, and follow. Oh, and YouTube thinks that you will like this video too, so maybe check it out. I'll see you in the next one.
Man, I just want to go play some hockey. I don't want to talk about guns anymore. I think I'm going to go play some hockey and maybe have a beer afterwards and not think about guns, hopefully for the next month. I don't think there's anybody going to win when you are like people have an argument about guns back and forth. Yeah, it's exhausting, annoying, and I really don't care. I don't know if anything I said in the video was controversial in nature. None, being provocative or controversial was obviously not any intention of mine. But I'd like to hear all of your thoughts about guns in the comments. Let me know what you think. Yeah, just give me your opinion, man. That's what it's all about. Learning and humility, having the ability to recognize your faults, and yeah, devil's in the details. All right, see you soon.